you kind of need to let it happen for a bit because they don't do that real time on purpose, I believe, to prevent them from figuring it out because it's like it's as much of an information war as about anything else, which is also why they're kind of coy. BSG this is that I'm talking about now about what they're doing. They're saying, oh, there's some cheat modules coming, and like they kind of have to be a bit
Oh yeah, 100%.
chill about it,
Yeah,
right?
by the
Because
way,
everyone can read the update.
yeah. Yeah, we're patching the explicit bug in Hackerman's aimbot 1265. We're gonna patch that, guys. Just like list out exactly. Yeah. Welcome to ScavTalk, Escape from Tarkov Podcast. We'll continuing to focus on development of the game, patch note analysis, theory crafting, and general gameplay discussions. My name is Church. I'm one of your hosts. I am a video editor for a Tarkov YouTuber named Airwing Marine.
And I'm GigaBeef, a Tarkov YouTuber helping players get better at the game that we know and love, Escape from Tarkov. And welcome back to ScavTalk. Today, anybody who's watching on video will see me in my new room, in my sort of new setup. Well, it is new. I'm still getting everything ready. So that's basically what I spent my week doing. Not just this room, but clearly, the whole house and everything. It's been pretty nuts. So I've got a lot of stuff to do, and but
Yeah,
I think
dude.
this is it's gonna be super cool when it's done and things. Like I've got this nice like shelving unit in the back or whatever, which is just like filled with junk right now, but it's gonna be sweet when it's all ready. So how's your week been? Hopefully it's been a bit more PC centric and a bit less breathing air and touching grass centric than mine.
Yeah, it's been good. Been in the gamer dungeon. And working and whatnot. I have played a little bit more Tarkov. I've kind of gotten. I was like, Tarkov's like I've been watching streams here and there, and I'm like, Tarkov do be looking kind of fun though. you know. So I've kind of just been doing factory a lot because it's just like you just get in the action. That's like all I really. For me, that's like kind of all the fun and
Yeah.
for my stage and the wipe. It's just shooting things, shooting people. So
Hmm.
that's actually been pretty fun. It's always kind of interesting coming back from like a break and you kind of like get to build up the muscle memory, but I often find like myself is like sometimes I'm like so focused on getting back into the flow that it like adds such an edge to my own play, Like I noticed like wow, it was like actively like I was like actively thinking of like trying to shoot this guy in the head. You know what I mean? It wasn't just like lazy reactionary. It's always I find that always interesting, because like the if you keep playing repetitive, you just sort of like fall into like these like habits, I guess. And I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah, that definitely happens. That's it is interesting. Like I always talk about like deliberate play in my videos usually, or I try to because it's kind of the thing that, if you just play lazily without really thinking about it, that's you can end up just either getting stuck in the same old loops or not really improving. And you kind of need that like the whole improvement cycle is about that feedback loop, right? Of going, I play, something happens, I analyze it,
Right.
I fix it, I play better next time, right? Rather than
Right.
just playing lazily, which is I play and then I play again and then I just play
Yeah.
again. And it's like you don't
Yeah.
necessarily think of what you should do. So it's that kind of virtuous circle of like making sure you're doing the right thing, which is always interesting. And that's sometimes why people like when they take a break, they come back and they're actually better than they were before because they've actually got that perspective or something. You can grind something too hard or force something for too long without really thinking about it. Which is super interesting. Just like purely out of interest, like which streamers do you tend to find yourself watching the most?
Um a lot of airwing because it's just like part of the
Yeah,
part of the job, I guess.
outside of the big
Um,
man.
yeah. And I've been recently getting back into watching Ghosts. I kind of like
Hmm.
just fell out because of like scheduling and just working. Sometimes it's like I just end up muting the streams, just like it's on the second monitor, but not really because it's like, oh, dude, I run this all the time. Is like this is a bit of a tangent, but I'll be working on like an Airwing video and I have a stream open, and then like they sound the exact same, like the stream and the editing. So I have to okay, I have to turn off the stream, and it's like especially bad if he's talking to me while I'm editing something. It's like,
Yeah,
oh god, it's nightmare. But anyways,
there's like layers
um,
of airing over the top of it. Yeah.
yeah, that's about it. Honestly, yeah, I mean, yeah, kind of it.
Yeah, I kind of like it seems to just it depends kind of who's on. I do tend to pick somebody
Sure.
from the top. If I don't watch a great deal of streams just because like I think I've said before, like I actually can't really concentrate. I really am quite like focused when I'm on doing one thing.
Yeah.
I can have like lo-fi, like no vocals music. That's about it.
Right.
Like having someone else's stream on, I find it I find it too distracting. Really, I was watching I was actually in Geeks' stream the other day,
Hmm.
which is super cool because he's just like a chill dude. So I've like been in his stream a bit and stuff, but yeah, it's just tough otherwise. I mean, I just I like the guys who are a bit more chill,
Yeah.
typically. But that's the great thing about Ghost too. He's just got such good vibes,
Oh yeah, for
and he's been
sure, for
doing super
sure.
well. He's actually been doing super well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. On that note, I distract myself and end up typing kick W. It's like so I do have to end up muting it eventually. Like, okay, I need to actually get something done.
So I guess onto the stuff from the week. I mean, yeah, I've been trying to keep up with stuff as best as I can, but
Sure.
obviously been a bit tricky. But I think that the main thing that I've seen is the alcohol event, which I guess like doesn't do a great deal. I don't think. I don't know what your perspective is from it.
Yeah.
It kind of looked similar to. It actually reminded me very, very much of the end of the wipe, like pre-wipe stuff from the previous one with like the Oldoblis or however you pronounce it, that stim with like the cocktail of like any random effect and then one of them might kill you, that kind of thing. It's like sort of the same kind of thing.
Yeah, you wouldn't be inaccurate, I think. I think that's pretty fair. Yeah. It does sort of feel like recycled content a bit. Um, but I don't know. It's whatever. I mean, it's like stuff like that doesn't really bother me too much because it's not like anything, like the Scav Brotherhood event was a little bit more game changing in terms of like this like changes Scav meta or like heavily affects that because now you have to like if you're in the negative or you're worried about being a negative, like it directly changes that whole Scav mode. Whereas like the vodka event, it's more of like a meme, you know what I mean? Like, oh, let me drink, unless you're the guy who is like level 2 and you find a vodka and you read the stats and you're like, okay, I could take this and get these perks or I could die. Like that's kind of interesting. But like I would venture to say the majority of the player base, it's not really anything you do within like that game uh within like I mean it's just a meme. Like I don't know how else to describe it. Like there's really no choice to make. It's like there's no upside. Like it's
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
think that's like that, and that's kind of how I felt about the other one because obviously it's like it was kind of memey, like you might just die instantly kind of thing, but it's one of those situations where you've got like these things to choose from, and like ultimate death is one of the answers, but none of the stats are really good enough. If you get like +5 or +10 or something, like does it really make that much difference? Like yeah, the difference between having like level 10 strength and having level 51 strength is like a big deal, but just
Right.
boosting your stats in like one raid where you might just die, like it's not worth taking it you know um so that's kind of that does seem to be it does seem to be, as you say, not really much of a choice. So it's just kind of something fun, but like again, it's one of those things where the worst case scenario is it doesn't really do anything to the game, and that's that. So at least it gets
Yeah.
people talking, and there's something out there. So I really don't mind them doing it. I just don't think it has a great effect this time around, which is completely fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Was there anything else that I kind of missed while we were away?
The only other thing was there was a tweet from BSG where they showed off a MDR and it was a malfunction. It was like a 3D model, right? And it was just like the gray boxing of it.
Mhm.
And it just shows this new animation for weapon jam, and I might be getting this wrong, but I believe it's a failure to extract malfunction. So like the shell doesn't it gets stuck in the ejection part of the gun
Oh,
mechanism.
yeah, yeah, okay.
So wait, that's weird. Your camera's frozen. I guess I have to keep this up. I don't know why it's doing that. Anyways, that was really it as far as like new stuff from BSG or any. There was some minor things like they changed the weight on some of the intel items.
Oh, yeah, I do
Basic
think I saw that. Was that to stop
Yeah.
people from, like, cheesing strength or something and, like, running around with, like,
Yeah.
a million SAS drives? Which is
Yeah.
probably okay, you know?
Yeah.
Nothing immersive like a backpack full of drives, you know, doing sprint training.
Well, not really a backpack, it's more of a giant butt plug.
Butt wallet, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because you could put them in there, couldn't you? That was the thing. I've never
Yeah,
actually bothered,
that's
like,
the
doing that kind
strat.
of hardcore strength training. I've never bothered. I don't know.
Well, it's pretty smart when I first saw it. I think I saw it from Summit back when he was playing with Landmark, and it was like you put all these SAS drives in the docs case. So you take, this 2x1 and it turns into like what is it, like a 4x4, 5x4
Ops is
weight.
4 by 4, I think.
Yeah. So and then you fill them all with SAS drives and it ends up being like 5 or 8 kilograms or something. Like it's actually pretty smart because then you don't have to worry. Like the other ways to do it is like you bring an empty fuel tank in. You bring in shotgun shells is like another common way.
Mm.
And the thing with those is like you have to re-buy them. It used to be you could insure the empty fuel tank, but BSG stopped that. Um, you
I
can no
remember
longer
that
insure
actually because
them.
you have to have, like, 1 fuel in it or something, otherwise it doesn't let you, I don't think.
Yeah, yeah. Now you just have one fuel. I don't know. It's kind of funny. There's
Yeah.
there's so many fun ways that it's like a battle between developer and player. It's not really a battle, but it's more just like you present the hoop and then I'll jump through it, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Eventually there'll
exactly.
be enough hoops or the whole platform or challenge will change completely. So it's always fun, I think
Yeah.
anyways, to see
That's
like
definitely the
players,
thing. Yeah, yeah. No, it's
you
great.
know.
It's just like, and the developer's just like, oh, here's a whole field of hoops, and then like everyone like runs through, and then they're just like, oh, I didn't expect you to go through the hoops in that order. I'll remove this one. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. Um. So, do you want to talk about the thing that we touched last time on, like, a segment that we ended up like pushing through to now, to this
Yeah.
week instead, because I think we had a bit of extra time to kind of digest it and like and look at it. I think that was a good time to bring it up.
Yeah, I think so. So there was a video a couple maybe like a week ago, a week and a half ago. YouTuber Upper Echelon Gamers, which I was actually I am still subscribed to him, and I was kind of giddy when I saw he had a Tarkov piece, and so he did a video on I think it was like titled "The Underground Economy." I can't remember the title, but essentially it was talking about this notion of how BSG is sort of like either I wouldn't say like an active party, but they're getting money from the hackers was kind of like the premise of the video. I don't know if you think that would be kind of fair evaluation of the video.
Yeah, it was kind of like a combination of there was a bit of accusatory kind of tone towards BSG and like saying I don't know, but you
Right.
know maybe they could be involved, and like you could see how they could be. Um, how they could kind of benefit from this situation, and how there's kind of I guess like what he was saying is there's like a conflict of interest potentially between them fixing the issue uh and them getting money for it. But I mean, you know, we saw well, I mean, we can get into it, but you know, we saw Nikita's like flatly denied the fact that this is a good thing, and I have seen stuff somewhere. Anyway, there's lots to talk about with this video, but yeah, he talked about that mainly, and then also about the cheater economy in general, and about how, which I've spoken myself about before a little bit, about
Mhm.
how Tarkov is like the perfect game for hackers in some ways, because rather than just having the usual motivations for hacking, you also have the RMT side, which is like particularly strong and like vigorous for something like Tarkov, because it just like the game model just like fits perfectly
Yeah.
to uh incentivize people to do it. I think is the best way that I would describe it, because something like COD, there's not even something like PUBG, which is probably the close kind of like a closer proxy. Because it's so round based and you don't really carry anything from one round to another. There's just kind of like the ability to win in one particular round, um, where hacking would be, I guess, useful for. Whereas like EFT, because of the whole RPG nature of it and the permanent, it's all of that, right? It's like the permanent nature of the stuff, but then the fact that you lose everything when you die, and then the fact that it's super brutal, plus the fact that it's in a beta stage and they're still working on it and there's issues, kind of makes it like the perfect battleground for hackers, which was really what the article was, or the video was talking about in particular. But it's quite funny actually, because you mentioned the video to me a
Yeah.
little bit ago, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, because in the video he mentions a article, which is the hacking side of it is like predominantly from this article, which is like an NME article. And when Church linked it to me, I was like, oh, cool, that's interesting, because like that NME article, I was actually approached to write something for, which I don't think at the time you realized, and I thought that was why you were bringing it up, because I actually wrote the other half, or like I put my input in, for the editors there on the other half of
Mhm.
it from as a content creator, instead, which is quite funny. So when you actually end up going to read the article, you're like, oh, there's loads of stuff from you in here, and I was like, yeah, that's why I thought you picked it. And you're like, no, I didn't even know you had anything to do with this. So I was like, okay, that's it's just like really funny turn of events. Um,
Yeah.
but like, I mean, a lot of like my response to it is basically just the same as what I said in the article, which is like, that the Upper Echelon video primarily focuses on what the guy who was doing, he was doing carries actually. It wasn't just like
Right.
out and out hacking. Which I guess it is. You turn the cheats on, and then you like carry people through the game, and it's like, I guess arguably one of the safer ways. I mean, you still partied with the dude, right? So it's pretty obvious if someone looks into it that you were part of this. If he gets banned and you were partied with him and you hoovered up tons of loot and you're level 3, like it should be fairly obvious to figure out if you did actually want to do a deep dive into it. But systematically, I could see why maybe it would be more tricky to solve that stuff and see why. But most of the video was from that and from the hacker perspective. And my main criticism predominantly was that you just can't take what these people say at face value. Like
Yeah.
there's there's sort of kind of two ends of the spectrum, right? There's like everybody's hacking in every game. You need to buy cheats. You need to buy my cheats now. Come to my website. I will sell you cheats, right? To the
Yeah.
other end, which is, I've played 15 labs raids in a row and I've been playing the game forever, and I never run into hackers at all. And there's like neither end is like correct, but I probably sit much more towards, the I don't really see cheaters that much, just partly because you you just can never tell. And this is the problem. Like sometimes you can, and sometimes that's fair enough. And I've been hacked on in labs myself, right? You get shot through a door, like two people are both stood next to each other, and you get headshot, bam, bam, one after the other, like through a door from a guy, and
Right.
you're like, okay, well, he didn't even open the door, so it's pretty blatant, what's happening
Right.
here. But there's just like so many situations where, and this is what I said to the guy in the questions, was that you see both sides of it, from different streamers, and people have very different things going on, and especially when desync's pretty bad, then it can really change your view of it. Like people look like they're hacking sometimes when they're not. Um, and I think like we've even had like streamers banned in the past, right? Because they were reported from their perspective of the player they were fighting, and they were like coming out the window even, and then teleporting back into the room and stuff. And they've got the actual clips of them literally not doing anything of the
Yeah.
sort, and this stuff getting overturned. And so that's the problem, is that even if the hacking thing is a problem, it's just so hard to know when. And some people would say, well, surely the hackers would know. because they can see, and that's kind of like part of the article. The other like the other side of the article that I was part of was that, well,
Hmm.
I had the hacks and I could see, and it's just like, yes, maybe, but also I don't trust you. So so I'm not really sure like how much of it to believe.
Yeah, I did feel like there was some intentional or unintentional misrepresentation of the article reference in the video, because it was sort of like brushed over that, you know, he's a yeah, I wish I wrote down his quotes or what he said word for word.
Okay.
But he basically was like, and these hackers, the claim was like, he was quoting the article, half the guy, the hacker was saying, 50% of my raids I go into, there's people hacking. And then he was like saying, him being the upper echelon was saying that takes one to know one. You know what I mean? Like he has the tools to see this and whatnot. But when you actually look into the article, it says, and I quote, "It's so bad," what he says, "that 50% of the raids I go into, there are people using shoot through wall, aimbot, or silent aim cheats." He stresses that while 50% of his raids include a cheater using blatant hacks, he hasn't accounted for closet hacks that are less obvious even to other hackers. And I wish I had, there might be another quote here, but the, let me see if I can find it because he references, like, he goes into detail about it where he's basically saying, I can see their survival rates and their KDs and their skills. Actually, that was a big one. Oh, one telltale hacking sign, this is a quote, by the way, is a player with completely maxed stacks has a particular common cheat allows hackers to give themselves maximum levels in every skill. Which this is true. I don't know if you've seen it, but there was a video on Reddit. Oh, I don't know, maybe like a year ago or something, where there's this guy on Shoreline, and he was like, it was someone infiltrate a hacking Discord and is recording the Discord screen sharing of the hacker playing Shoreline, and he had like all these like hacks on the screen, like walls, name bots, and whatnot. But he had like max strength, and he was just like like speed hacking, bunny hopping, like just some insane stuff. And like he had like zero animations. You know how like when you
Yeah.
jump, there's like it's like zero animations and stuff. And he had a cheat where when he loaded into the raid, you could see he just like at the bottom right, all of his skills just like leveled up, to max. So like I say all that to say, even the cheater doesn't know. He may have the information that this guy has max strength, max stamina, or whatever. Or he has this KD, but he doesn't know that the person's hacking. You know what I mean? Like, sure, like even to go further beyond that, if like let's say the cheater's hacking and he looks through walls, right? So he can see people through walls and he can see their character models. If he sees someone that looks at him through a bunch of walls, he could be like, "Oh, that guy's hacking." But like in reality, we don't really know that because like what if that guy was looking through all those walls, that guy was like looking at a door or staring at an object or something. You know what I mean? Like there's like
Yeah,
it's not
how
like a
do you know?
definitive yeah, it's not like a definitive method. So like you like it's a very bold claim coming from the cheater because he, it, there really is no way of knowing. Um
Yeah,
well,
exactly. I think there was another thread at one point. I don't know, because it kind of you end up getting into like some layers of uh I guess like thought process and trying to like figure it out. Where if he's saying there was actually something on Reddit recently, it was actually in reference to this, I think. It was either in reference to the article or the video, and I can't remember which. And there was a bunch of people talking about, well, if it's 50% of raids, why do streamers like Landmark not get killed half the time by someone who's a cheater? Which is a good
Landmark's
question,
employed.
right?
He's employed by Battle Eye. Didn't you know this?
But that's even the same would go for like me or like anybody else, who's just kind of just playing the game. I don't think people get killed. I mean, some people chalk stuff down to cheats all the time, right? And that's just the way that they are. That doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
mean that they know. But I would say that like the people who are fairly like open-minded about the way that this stuff can go, I really don't think I'm killed by a cheater like in 50% of raids. I really don't. I mean, most of
How
our
would
raids
you
are
know?
5% anyway. But firstly, like it just doesn't feel that way. And he's saying, "Oh well, I'm not accounting for all these other cheats." So he's what he's saying it's higher than 50%. There's somebody who's like using the harder to discover ones as well, or like the silent ones. I just don't think it's true. And like, the only reason why you can maybe say, well, if some of the big streamers aren't getting killed constantly, it's because well, either the hackers maybe they're not going to kill people because they don't want to be flagged up, so they're just doing like RMT loot runs or something, or they don't kill big streamers like Landmark because then they're more likely to be found out because they're going to be seen and reported by him and then everyone who comes up against him afterwards. I know there's kind of that next layer of like maybe there's other reasons as well as to why they're not actively killing people, because I guess that's the thing that, do we really care if they like whiz in and loot the whole map and stuff? Like, yeah, it sucks, it's annoying, but much less bad than getting shot in the head. So, I think that's the thing that people care about, is getting head-eyed instantaneously from across the map by some hacker who's yeah using a silly cheat. But that's the thing that people care about the most, and I just don't see that happening in my raids that I play. I really don't.
I mean, I don't either, but I would just say it's kind of irrelevant because there's just no way of knowing. Like, there's probably been times where you killed a cheater, and there's probably been times when I died to a cheater, but it was just we would have no way of knowing. Like, sure, like the head eyes feels really bad compared to like the guy that has like loot radar, you know. But like if you were to show me like, hey, you played a raid with this guy and he had loot radar and he got the LEDX before you could in like this random spot, I'd be like, yeah, that's kind of unfair. But without having that knowledge presented to me, I'm just like completely oblivious of the
Yeah.
situation. And that's kind of like there was this yeah, I guess, like, maybe it was amateur, I don't know. There was so CS:GO maybe, like, a couple years ago, maybe a year ago, there's a story of in the Indian CS:GO scene, there was this team, and they were, like, sponsored, like, they had all these sponsors, and they were competing to, like, qualify for some major tournament,
Mhm.
and at the LAN event, the guy had hacks downloaded Forsaken. Thanks, dude. Dude said he had hacks. I think it was downloaded. He tried to hide it in like his drivers, or possibly it was like in the folder. It it ended up coming to light because as they were spectating the event, it was like that looked a little sus. Let's just do a quick investigation. And then he started like freaking out on land, like, no, what are you doing? Don't look at my like it was actually really embarrassing and really cringe.
Super weird.
But so it ended up coming out he was hacking. Um, but then like when you think about it, that puts into question all the other previous events he's played into,
Yeah.
all the online, all the other, and you would be none the wiser. You know what I mean? You could be like, man, that was really sus. You know what I mean? That's like the best you can do. And it's just like, I mean, I hate to say it, but you're kind of just like powerless without like some commission or, third party intervention going in. Because you just
Yeah.
have no way of knowing.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's
It's
like,
interesting, like, well, you were saying before about like yeah, I actually didn't realize there was the max stats thing. Um, I was not even aware that that was a thing, but like
mm,
that should be like pretty obvious if you're able to see that stuff, then I guess no one's going to have like max on every single skill or something. Otherwise, unless they're doing something
yeah,
suspect, right? So there's
yeah.
like some things that maybe I guess you can see, and other things you can't. But I still, and this is the thing, it's like, yeah, in theory, these people can see this stuff, and the problem is that like you can't trust what they say anyway, because they have a vested interest to try to make everybody feel that they need it, right? Because these people are they're out there to make money. They're not playing the game regularly. This is a business for them. This is
Yeah.
not them just playing the game and talking about the game or whatever. It's it's a pure business, and this kind of thing is like pure marketing. I was actually not sure if I actually wanted to write on the article at all, to be honest with you. I actually
Mhm.
really thought about it, um, and also kind of in light of like comments I've made previously about it. But the problem is that at this point, like I think everybody under the sun has talked about it. So I was like, well, you know what? If we just muddy the waters a little bit further, it's not really going to make a difference now because like it is, once it became basically the number one thing the community was talking about, it's just like, well, the floodgates have already opened. It doesn't even matter now. So I can at least try to like present some of the other side and
Yeah,
maybe
for sure.
maybe gives people some people a level of kind of logical skepticism about what these people are saying, rather than just taking it at face value. And that was the thing that I actually thought was the biggest criticism for me about the Upper Echelon video, was just taking what they're saying like completely at face value without putting really any critical thinking over the top of it or any kind of perspective as to,
Right.
okay, they're saying these things. Well, where are they coming from? Maybe let's not rule them out of hand, like what's possible, what's plausible, but what also seems sensible from like my perspective as a player and stuff. It's like I don't believe that 50% of raids have somebody who's like obviously hacking, because I just think I think it would be more obvious than it is. The only other thing that kind of comes to mind is that I did actually read on Reddit in a few places people saying, "Oh, I think there must have been a ban wave. Like, oh, if the game feels better." I actually started seeing some of these threads appearing, or at least some comments appearing, people saying, "Oh yeah, it's actually got a bit better," and that kind of thing. And I know that the servers in Pacific do generally suffer the most, and so people
Hmm.
over there saying, "Okay, I can actually play some raids, and it does seem like there's some improvements." Because I think I've always said this, like I really think that like Western Europe in particular seems, maybe it's just me, but it seems to be one of the less affected sets of servers, just kind of like based where we are for whatever reason. I think we're kind of
Yeah.
right in the middle of all the time zones, and so we kind of get the ping lock stuff. Whereas like I think
Right.
there's some other people who can access like um, US East and that kind of thing. So it's, I don't know, we're sort of in a nice sort of middle ground. And I do also wonder whether like the European servers potentially have more, because like I've also hear like other, like cheaters aside, right? I hear about other issues and other problems and technical issues and lag and all this kind of stuff in the US servers. And I do wonder, BSG is based closer to me than they are to you. And I do wonder whether the European servers, maybe because they came first or something, they've had more time spent on them. I've no, I don't know. It's a pure guess, but it does seem like there's a lot of issues with the US servers that I don't feel necessarily as bad on the European servers. We also have less players, so that might also have something to do with it.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine too, part of it is infrastructure. Like we just have, the entire East and West Coast to connect. And like technically you can play on, like I'm all the way east almost. And I could play on West servers, no problem. I mean, I'm pushing close to 100 ping, but it's very playable. You know what I mean? But if like along that daisy chain, if one chain is bad, it affects the whole chain. You know what I mean? Whereas like if you have a much smaller real estate, and you have smaller, I guess, chains, then it's kind of a bit of a better performance, I would imagine.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I did want to.
Oh yeah.
What were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say no. Sorry, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I just thought that there was some flaws with the video as well.
Yeah, and I've kind of felt like, as you were saying, we just sort of took what he said at 100% truth, or whatever. But I felt like it was used to sort of support this message that BSG is somehow involved or is like actively benefiting from this. Because as you sort of like started the conversation, it is a very unique situation in that you have, and most games you have the cheat developer and then you have the consumer of that good, right? Um, and sometimes there is a bit of what we're about to talk about next, like but then you in Tarkov you have the cheat developer, you have the purchaser of the cheats, and then you have the seller of the in-game goods, who potentially could be a cheater, right?
Mm.
And that would be the logical thing to do, is like, hey, if I'm trying to make some money from this, I can't possibly pump out 1,000 Lexes a day or whatever. But if I cheat, that's actually kind of feasible. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
then you start doing the math. It's like, well, if I do this much, then I cover my costs for my cheats and whatnot. So like it starts to become an actual business proposition, and it's like the cheater likes it because they're getting revenue, right? And the person selling the goods, they're getting revenue, and then that's where you tie in argument comes in. Well, now BSG likes it because they're getting new copies of the game purchased from these cheaters that are getting banned, and that was like the other big, probably the main point of his discussion.
Yeah. Now, I don't know how I feel about that because, like, if you assume that cheaters are buying copies either just all the time or in the
Hmm.
sales, then yes, that's like a side effect of the problem. Now, clearly, Nikita doesn't really want this because they spend so long thinking about the feel of the game and trying to get things right for whatever you think of Nikita, right? He's passionate and he's trying to make the
Yeah,
game the way he wants to make it and do the right thing for the game, not for the money. Because I think it was like Clean or someone who said previously, if they wanted to monetize the game and add microtransactions for cosmetics or whatever, they could absolutely clean up. If they wanted to do that and they wanted to just like milk it for as a cash cow, they absolutely could. But they're not going to do that because it's not their vision. It's not the way they want the game to be. So I doubt. So you could kind of have a situation where the cheating situation means lots of people are buying games, but BSG is still actively trying to stop it anyway, even though in the short term it's a boost to revenue or something like that. You could have that situation ongoing. Now, I'm definitely not an expert at this, but you do see many times when this discussion comes up about people talking about cheaters being able to buy like either I'm not an expert, but it's either like I don't think it's like cracked copies of the game, but it's like games that were like purchased with like spoofed credit cards and that kind of thing, and then like the charges are
yes,
reversed or something. So you have a key, but then BSG never actually ends up getting the money, and that kind of thing. And I'm
right.
sure there's like other sophisticated ways of like getting in, in that scenario. And as I said, I'm not an expert, so I have no idea what the percentage breakdown might be between full games sold at sale en masse, and these kind of like pennies on the dollar versions of the game that you can go in and still interact with the official servers, yet um, yet not pay anything really, a fraction of the price for. And in that
Yeah,
case, then BSG isn't really making anything. They
right.
might even be losing money, right? If they're like paying transaction
Oh,
costs to
100%.
X Solar or whoever, and then it ends up getting reversed and that kind of thing. Um, you can imagine a situation where they actually end up losing money there. So I just simply don't know. I don't know which way round it is, but I do believe that they are trying to get rid of it because it makes the game really suck, right? If people are getting hacked on all the time, it does make the game really suck. And that's not, it just doesn't go hand in hand with anything else that they're doing. I just don't think it makes sense. And I know that there's revenue tied in with this, but there's revenue tied in with making the game arcadey and having tons of people with Twitch drops and stuff, right? And Nikita said, "Oh, if we have half the player base, we make the game we want to make, then we'll make it." And some people are skeptical and some people are critical of it and say, well, at the end of the day, it is about money in the end, blah, blah, blah. But, I think they've made like a decent amount anyway on what they've sold. Most people, as a good
Yeah.
portion of people who buy EOD, it's a lot more expensive than a regular game. So I can't imagine that finances are really a big problem for them in that way. And so I don't think they're trying to squeeze like, a ton of money out of it and using cheaters to do that. I just think there's better methods of doing it, which is why I doubt that that's the reason.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think you're right. And that was something that I really wasn't aware of is like how they, again, like you, I'm not an expert, but again, they pay these companies, BSG, to have like fraud protection, right? So if someone steals a credit card or, however that looks like, and they make a purchase of the game, and then it gets declined because it's illegitimate, that they're paying a cost for that service, right? Um, and as you said, there's these keys that are being resold on the third party sites for like half the cost because it's like, it's a dead. I guess there's like, no value into it, but there's value into the cheater who just needs like a temporary account for a couple days to, get some more. I don't know. I really wouldn't like, because if you think about your account, your Tarkov account is tied to the BSG account. So if you were to get banned, presumably you would be banned the account would be gone. So you'd have to buy a new account. Like that's really expensive. Like 60, like was it $60, $50? And then do you also think, well, oh, I just get a hardware ID and IP spoofer. That's also expensive. You know what I mean? That's a service. That's not free. Um, so this is sort of like the alternative is like I can just use all these other, you know, what's the word? Malicious accounts. These like stolen credit card purchases of the game that's being resold on like these sites like G2 G2A is like a site. I don't know if they're legitimate or not, but that's just like an example of a site that like resells stuff. um so yeah, like I that was sort of brought to light to me, and that really changes the situation, because it's like all of a sudden BSG aren't getting the money. Like maybe they're getting some money, but it just like it couldn't even amount to like anything feasible. And then you also have to factor in, like you said, like this is like such a short term game, and considering where they came from, like this is essentially their first game on their own. Like they worked on some of them worked on the what's the name of the
What the contract
parent?
was, the old one.
Yeah, what was the name of that company? Was it like a parent company of
Yeah, I
BSG? I
can't
don't know.
remember the name of the company itself.
Anyways, this really is their first. They're on their own 2 feet, this time around, and I don't believe it was ever. Tarkov has like a very Cinderella story, and I feel like we're in the stage of like we had to dance with the prince, and now the prince is trying to find us, and like all the tragedy happens in between that. Like that's kind of where we're at. Like Tarkov just kind of exploded a little too soon for like its own good in some ways, because they're an indie studio, man. This is like an indie game. Like AAA's companies, they do not make full loot PvP games where you die, you lose your gear, all that stuff you worked for. These types of games are just not popular. Like as a matter of fact, I heard Amazon's New World, originally it was supposed to be a survival based game where you build and there was full loot PvP where you would gain gear and stuff. And people played it in the beta, and you know what they said? This sucks. They did not like it. They did not like it. So I think they reworked it twice before they came up with the current formula they have. Are like, okay, this is great. Um and that's really interesting too to me.
Mm.
I'm sure there's plenty of details I missed. There's a guy, I can't remember his name, on YouTube that covers the topic, but yeah. It is so interesting because it is like you said again, it's unique in that there's this secondary market where it's like people sort of have like this fallacy. It's like, oh, I'm not cheating, this guy's cheating. I'm just paying my hard-earned cash to get the in-game gear. That's not cheating. And it's like I mean, it is cheating. You know what I mean? Yeah, you're not downloading any hacks or whatever, but you're cheating the game. The game did not intend for this to happen. It's just like it'd be like if we were sitting down at a table and we were playing cards, and then I just pull out an extra deck and I'm like, oh guys, I just bought this at Walmart. I'm not cheating, guys. But like literally, I have ruined the rule sets for the game for everyone. Because then now you may say, oh, fine. Well, if you're gonna do that, I'm gonna draw an extra card. I'm gonna cheat as well. But then it's like the rule sets have crumbled, and the game has been completely stripped of a game. It's not a game anymore.
Yeah, well, it's just like it becomes kind of pay to win instead. I mean, this is the thing, right? It's like those are the people at the top of the funnel that make the whole ecosystem function. Because without people willing to buy the stuff, people aren't willing to use the cheats to go and get the stuff. And without people who are willing to use the cheats, then the devs who make the cheats won't make the cheats, right? The only reason why Tarkov had
Yeah.
cheats is because it got quite big. And so this is the thing. It's like you just gotta like you gotta what's that? Is this from? I think that's from a show or something. It's just like follow the money, just follow the money. Like, where does the money come
Yeah.
from? Like, well, the money
Yeah.
comes from the people um, who pay for this stuff. They either pay for the carries or they do pay for like. 'Cause some people pay for outright cheats, but I think it's like I can't imagine it's that many. I mean, in um, in the article, it talks about how some people pay because they want to get like revenge on other cheaters, which is like, I'm sure some people do. It's kind of silly, but I mean, from what I've heard, they're like absolutely is so expensive. Like it's actually crazy to me that anybody would
Yeah.
use those cheats just for like, to the cheaters, and we're gonna get them back kind of thing. Like it's crazy. Like it's like a lot of money, like a serious amount of money, like way more than like EOD, like and
Yeah.
weekly, like it's mental. But I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah. It's
because a lot of the
insane.
time, yeah, the good ones are kind of private cheats or whatever, which are because there's lots of different ones that you could get, and I guess it's like groups of different devs, and the smaller the grouping, and the less people that use it, the less likely you are to be found out. But I suppose it's more expensive because then you've got a smaller group of people who are writing them or whatever. So yeah, you just got to like follow the money from the top, and those are the people that get discouraged. They think cheaters are in every raid. I mean, there's going to be a certain subset of people who think they're being hacked on all the time, even if they're not, and they may well end up going towards cheats if they have that mentality. And there's always going to be people who are always quick to blame, I don't know, external factors, I should say. So rather than
Yeah.
themselves or their knowledge or whatever, it'll be like, oh, this guy was
Right.
doing this, or this guy was doing that, or that. And it's always someone else's fault. And there's always going to be people out there like that. Don't be that guy. Be the person who is like critically thinking, trying to change your own mentality. Just do what you can. Like, don't worry
Hmm.
if other people are cheating. Like, yeah, it's annoying, right? And if it really bothers you that much, just go and play something else for a bit because BSG. Another thing actually that I find it quite interesting about this is that in order to fight the war against cheating, you kind of have to be playing in some way. And if you don't want to play, then that's fine. But if you are going to be playing, then you need to let it happen. Actually, you do need to let it happen. And yes, use a report feature, which is great because they've added that in, and that really helps them. That's fine. But you need to let it happen because if they banned people instantaneously, the cheaters would know like what they did. They got them banned. There's like this weird war
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
the devs of the cheats and the devs of the game because it's like, well, you almost want to leave it as long as possible, right? Because then it's like, well, yeah, the cheats got updated for this and this and this and this and this and this, and then bam, everyone's banned simultaneously on one day, and it's just like, what do we do? Like, what was the change that we made? Whereas if it's like they make one tiny tweak and then people start getting banned, they're like, okay, well, that's what they're looking for. Now we can write something else, And
Yeah. Yeah.
you kind of need to let it happen for a bit because they don't do that real time on purpose, I believe, to prevent them from figuring it out because it's like it's as much of an information war as about anything else, which is also why they're kind of coy. BSG, this is that I'm talking about now, about what they're doing. They're saying, oh, there's some cheat modules coming, and like they kind of have to be a bit
Oh yeah. 100%.
chill about it,
Yeah.
right?
By the
Because
way,
everyone can read the update.
yeah. Yeah, we're patching the explicit bug in Hackerman's aimbot 1265. We're gonna patch that, guys. Just like list out exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so having it happen, it doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't watching, aren't listening, don't see it, right? Like BSG may even see you die to a cheater that they know of and know is hacking, but they are, monitoring their activity, monitoring where they go, what they do, what their signature looks like, whether it changes. If they ban one person, does that change? Who else does that change? Because that would actually be
Right.
kind of
I mean,
interesting in some ways. Like if you banned, can you imagine like if you banned one individual person, then you're like, oh, well, these signatures changed on all these other cheating things, so they must all be from this provider or whatever. I'm sure it's like quite fascinating. It's something that I used to live with like five computer scientists, and it was interesting. We used to talk about like info security and that kind of thing. But like as a non-professional, it's definitely interesting to talk about like the concepts without necessarily having to actually do them, because I think there's a lot of laborious work and it's very difficult. So um, yeah, look, it's such a tough one. It's really such a
yeah.
tough one for BSG. Like treading that line between the game being awful when it's really bad, but not taking too much action that they signal what they're doing. Like it's tricky, and lots of people. And obviously, no one's going to be happy until it looks and feels like the problem's completely solved. Then no one's going to be happy
It will
about it.
never be completely
Yeah.
solved, though. That's
I mean,
the
you look at the other big games, right? You look at the triple A's. People talk about indie versus triple A's, and you look at like Warzone. Like, you've got streamers leaving Warzone because it
yeah.
can't be fixed there. And if it's like, well, if it can't be fixed there, I mean, whether they really care or not, because they're probably building the next four different CODs, and so this one's probably already on the back burner. The B team's got hold of this one, and it's the game cycle is brutal. I mean, it does raise an interesting question for another time about non-subscription games and how long they should be supported for. It's tricky, But yeah, if it can't be fixed in like
Yeah.
AAA world, then they got the work cut out for them. Is all I'll say. They got their work cut out for them. But I believe.
Y- Yeah, I mean, if like you ban a hacker, you just gave him a really tiny hoop to jump through. You know what I mean? It's not like the problem really hasn't gone away. So to your point earlier you were making, and even games like CS:GO, I watched an update video that came out, and one of the comments War Owl made was like, it's great they added all these new matchmaking features, but more than half the player base uses third-party matchmaking to because it has, not only does it have better matchmaking, it also has third-party anti-cheat. You know what I mean? It's just like
Yeah.
it's I don't know, it's funny how that works out, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
just
interesting. Like it's almost you can make like analogs to so you said about the hoops. You reminded me of what we were talking about earlier, but it's almost like emergent hacking behavior from
oh,
what you put in your
100%.
game. It's like the same thing. It's like, oh, here's the game, and then it's like, well, how do we hack it? And it's like, it's no different to players in some sense. Um, Obviously, in practicality, it's completely different. But from a mentality perspective, if you were all ethics aside, you're looking at it as okay, what's the most efficient route to do X or Y? It's the same as like with player playing the game, and it's like, oh, well, okay, SAS drives, okay, well that's gone. Well, now we'll use something else. It's
Yeah, yeah.
that same kind of like mentality. If you're taking away all of the like ethical considerations and all that kind of stuff, and it's interesting because like I actually don't blame anybody who does it because if you can make a bunch of money doing it, then and I think especially the devs are the ones that make like serious cash. If you could make a bunch of money programming for a bunch of games for cheats rather than coding Oracle server databases or whatever it may be that you're doing, it's like I you know I kind of don't blame them. See, if it's easy
Yeah,
money,
morals
then
morals aside, yeah.
yeah, then kind of whatever, right? And it's like morals. Well, at the end of the day, it's just a video game, and the people who get really hurt by it primarily the streamers and the people who pay some money and then because the thing is the average consumer like a lot of the uh obviously a lot of the Tarkov like content creator world takes it very seriously and is like bitterly hurt and feels wronged by the world, but for the vast majority of the player base like it is just a game, and if people get frustrated they'll just go and play something else, whereas a lot of content creators can't just do that, and so it feels especially bad. But at the same time, I don't know, like, yeah, it sucks. Yeah, it's against terms of service. Yeah, like it's borderline illegal. It probably is illegal, actually. But like enforcing that stuff internationally is like kind of impossible. And it's
Yeah.
also, as much as I have sympathy for people who are content creators and feel like it's ruining their like business or whatever, like I also am of the opinion that like, you don't necessarily have like the it's a hard one to say. Maybe this is going to come across in the wrong way, but it's like you don't necessarily have like the right mm, to just be like, oh well, this needs to work for me because I make a living playing the game or whatever. It's like, well, the game wasn't designed to like make a living off playing it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
not
Yeah,
saying
no,
that like is
100%.
right or anything, but it's also like just assuming that oh well, I need to be able to do this to keep making my money doing this. I kind of like I don't know. It feels
Yeah,
a bit
it's
weird.
very self-driven,
Kind
you
of,
know.
yeah. I think the majority of the player base, like, there's people who are super into EFT, and that's fine. But I think the majority of the player base either just don't feel it very much, kind of probably like me, honestly, where like I think if you feel like you're getting cheated on all the time, then you will feel like you're being cheated on. Whereas I just kind of try to ignore it, and I honestly most of the time I just don't even think about it. And I think majority of the player base probably is like that. And if they do get frustrated, then they'll just go and move on, play something else. Play the new Diablo 2 remastered or whatever. And it's like, yeah, it's content creators that are dedicated to this one particular game who feel it the most keenly, especially when they play a lot, especially streamers, I think. Streamers who main EFT and nothing else, I think they feel it the most. Uh,
Yeah, but there is a lot of people in the line of fire when you do decide to cheat, because then you're affecting the consumer because they want to have fun, so they buy the game, and then
yeah.
they encounter a cheater. So now their fun has been taken away. So
Mm.
now the standard becomes like, well, if they're gonna cheat and it's fun, then I need to cheat to have fun. And now you're like, if anyone doesn't adopt that is like, dang, this game's a bad game, you know, now you're cutting the sales of the company. And then it's like you could in theory go to like this really dark futuristic world where like games aren't played anymore. They're ran by programs, you know, who's got the best program, the best hacks, you know, some like crazy dark cyberpunk, you know, the national hacking esports competition. Like, oh yeah, aimbot master 3000 is going to destroy you noobs, you know. It's just like it I say all that to say is like I think the war will like last forever, but I don't want like anyone to bow down to like the cheaters because the what that would mean is just like the landscape would just change completely from like to this dark cheating world where it's like it's literally it's not even about playing the game, it's about programming hacks to quote unquote play the game. Like it's weird, it'd be weird, you know, it'd be weird. I don't know.
And then, like, what's
That's
even
the
the point?
crackpot.
You know, then it's
Yeah.
what's even the point? But I think that I think there actually are. I know that like definitely there is in chess, but I don't. I think there might be for some other games as well. And it's not even like hacks, right? It's just like AI
Yes.
competitions. I've definitely seen them in some games before, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
In
No, that's cool.
outside of this context, which is like I remember seeing there was one actually, and it was kind of flawed. It was a Dota 2 one. There was one that was
Open
demoed, I
AI.
think. Yeah, which was like the
Yeah.
Shadow Fiend
It's
mid one, which like destroyed a load of people, which was kind of cool.
yeah.
Which is interesting. But like it was like a very, very specific scenario. Like I looked at it afterwards and I was like, oh well, it's kind of impressive, sort of. I thought at
Yeah.
first I was like, oh my God, this is insane. And then after looking into
Yeah.
it a bit more, I was like, this is kind of impressive, but it's like all the items were banned. Like
Yeah, there was a lot of, like, yeah,
yeah,
for
like you
sure.
could only play one hero, and you had to play it in mid, and it was like the one we want, like first tower to be destroyed kind of thing. It was like really, 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 really specific, like so specific.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I mean, this is a complete tangent, but there's like some interesting things about like training AI and like these neural nets, which is what people tend to be using um, now for this stuff, because you can just like set it through like a bazillion different runs,
Mhm.
and then just kind of see what happens. I'm always interested as to like how or whether these systems actually even can like make these like logical steps or logical leaps for things that are like I don't think you'd necessarily find out by like random chance, but you have to kind of put some like human intuition and like reasoning in. So something like creep blocking in Dota 2, it's like, would a computer ever find that out even? Would that even be in like
I
the
know.
realm of like something that would randomly happen? And then because it's like an evolution thing, it's like,
Right.
this thing happens and it's more efficient, and so then that pathway gets reinforced. Um,
Yeah.
and I just don't know whether that would happen ever in just like the random like sampling or whatever. It depends on how it's set up, I think. It's very, very strange. It's very strange.
You need to watch the more recent one where they did 5 OpenAI bots versus, 5, like, personalities, like, Dota 2 personalities. There might have been a couple pro players, but, dude, that one's really interesting, man, because it's just like, dude, what? Because that one has a lot more of the full game rule sets allowed, if I recall correctly. I think the hero pool was still very limited, but it still was like, dude, this is actually pretty insane.
Yeah, I didn't
There's
actually
a
see
lot
that one.
of
It's interesting that there's like an update to it.
yeah, you need to check it out. It's really cool.
I'll
There's
take
a
a
lot
look
of
because
interesting
it's
stuff with
interesting. This kind of thing is interesting, and it's sort of related, right? It's sort of it's similar, but it's
yeah,
off on
yeah.
like a different side because it's got kind of the same thing ultimately, but just used in
Mhm.
a different in a different forum, where it's like kind of okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um we're running out of time, so there's some closing thoughts I want to throw in here is I think one thing BSG should look into and is I don't know. I don't really know the answer, but so like Valve when they came up with the Steam market or I guess like just like Steam platform,
Mm.
you know, they were afraid of or there was talks of like pirating. Like people are just going to pirate. Like I don't know. They had like an issue of pirating or they were concerned about pirating and then their sort of like solution was like well, you know, pirating it's providing a service and you know, so and it's just easier for them to do versus like buying a game. So if we
Right.
just make the experience super easy for them to buy the game, and then on top of that, like if like they want to just like, oh, I just want to pirate a game just to try it out. Well, if you have like Valve's, you know, return policy, which I don't know if you've ever returned any games, but I have, and it's like I've
Mm.
never had an issue. Um, it's just like, yeah, you can just download the game, play it for an hour. You don't like it, just return it, and you get the money back. It's kind of crazy,
Yeah.
but that was sort of like their philosophy. Like, let's just provide the service they're doing and make it easier and legitimate, for the consumer. And so, like, there's a kind of a dark side to that because then it's like, well, if we apply it to like EFT, then like that means that like for you can buy these microtransactions. Like, here's your mutant AK, just only $1. You know what I mean? That's kind of like, oh, because that's I think that's where you and I kind of agree is like the problem is the RMT side of it, right? And
Yeah.
they've tried to cut back on that, like with the found and raid mechanic. I don't know. I To me it seems like, and I want to say it is the case that Nikita explicitly said this, but maybe I'm wrong, is that found and raid was for RMT because the old method was like you go into a raid with a guy and he drops the valuable stuff, Red Rebel, um, sick case full of labs key cards, and then you take it and then you go into the flea market because remember, found array wasn't a thing. You could just sell anything on the flea market, and you sell the labs key card on the flea market. Someone buys it, and then the irony is, to me, most likely the person buying it would be a hacker to restart the process. You know what I mean? Because they got infinite rubles. They're just trying to make money. But yeah, so like I almost feel like they need to target the buyer of the RMT. And I don't know if that means like you start banning, tracking down people and banning them. I mean, I had a friend who bought RMT and he
Really?
got banned. Yeah, yeah, and it's just like, yeah, I feel like if they can target that, and I don't know if you go to the really dark side where you start doing pay to win stuff. I definitely don't want that. Um, I don't know if you just add a bunch of hoops where everyone just like trading on the flea market because it's really easy to do stuff on the flea market, right? And it's like it's even easier to go and raid and I drop you some stuff. I mean, they've tried to put limitations on it, like, hey, you can only carry 2 bitcoins in your PMC. So they've added some hoops, but I don't know if they need to make like a bunch of hoops. Like so many hoops that finally the guy trying to have this business is just like, what, it's just not worth it anymore. I just can't make a profit. Like I feel like that's possibly, then again, you're kind of targeting the seller. I don't know. I just wonder if they could target the buyer
That's
more.
really where the most effect is had for sure. And that like generally comes from like people who when they're just getting banned. But that's the problem because you have to somehow figure that out, and it can be difficult, especially with these like carries kind of thing. But like as you say, a lot of the stuff that got changed originated within like RMT fixes. So finding raid, which has its own effects on the game, which I think are kind of interesting as well. But like I think the primary focus, as you said, was RMT. But then like some of the other stuff, it's kind of annoying because not being able to carry like certain numbers of bags, like especially the bigger bags, I find like that's really a real pain. And it's good that they put this sorting table in because now you can actually like sort these things out through your inventory. But before
Mhm.
you had to have a space for like the biggest bag in your inventory so you could actually move them around. And like having that in there because of RMT, it's like it reminds me of when like DRM properly came in for games, like oh God, I don't even know now, like 10 years ago maybe or something. And like every like CD or DVD that you used to install a game from had like it was like strict DRM and like you had to have the stuff in and like even on like console, right? Some of them you have to have like the disc
Yeah.
in to like verify and that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And all you end up doing is like hurting the legit users because those people like if they lose the disc, then they can never get it back and that's it.
Right.
They've lost it, or like you have to have the disc physically in or whatever. And the people who are hacking, they don't even care. They can have as many copies as they like. They don't need the disc in the machine. Like if they got a cracked PS3 or whatever, right? And like, I remember back then it was kind of like the problems were so onerous, but completely bypassed by like the hacking community. And
Mhm.
it just meant that like legit users just got punished for like not doing things in the bad way, which it's sad, right? And you kind of want to avoid that. And so I think some things like things that annoy me probably the most from a user's perspective is like the bags thing, but that's kind of been fixed with the sorting tables, not too bad. And the other one being the bloody capture, right? Click on the 3 Salewers so you can proceed on the flea market like every 5 seconds. That is really frustrating. I find that very, very annoying. And are they really that worried about bots? It's like the same thing about the reordering of all the crafts in the hideout. It's like, oh, we do it so that bots can't just like automate it. Well, okay. Like, do we really care that much? I'm not sure if we care enough to just like irritate literally the entire player base for like a small number of people who are using bots with like a fixed script so you can go and like craft stuff in the hideout. Like, is that the biggest problem of all time? I'm not sure. So I don't know. There's some things which I think end up like disproportionately hurting legitimate users, and you really have to just be careful not to do that because then you end up like the whole game. Oh yeah, the game's like perfectly against RMT, and no one ever wants to do RMT in it anymore because literally no one plays because it's super frustrating. You know what I mean? It's like you have to
Yeah.
have that line.
Yeah, and it is hard because there is like those are like smaller details within like the grand scheme or like the big picture of it all, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't even know if like let's like hypothetically, just for fun, let's just say there was no flea market, you know. Would you still have RMT? Strictly RMT. Let's just leave carries out of the equation for now. Probably because you could,
Still pay for stuff. Yeah.
yeah. Like I could pay for like good gear and stuff.
Pay for slicks or
Um,
cards or whatever.
but do like I don't think currently that's a very big, cash is king, so they usually focus on the cash aspect. So, um, the big value stuff, like just recalling from my friend experiences, it was like packages was like a Red Rebel sick case and a bunch of keys was like a that's like the starter package, and those things are like permanent because assuming you can put them in your butt fast enough, and put them in the
Yeah.
slot. So it's like I don't know, just like hypothetically speaking, if that stuff was gone as well, you know, no flea market, no secure melee slot, no secure container, would you still like then you're really shifting the market away from like buying money and like these starter packs to like buying gear. I don't know if there would be a big market for that type of stuff, and then like if you add a I don't know, it's just like as the game if the game were to evolve a certain way or new stuff was to be introduced, just as another example we have to wrap up is open world Tarkov. Let's just assume flea market's a real place and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, would people still do RMT? Because then, like, I mean, you're not paying for a carry to like escort you. Like, it's just very weird. Like in Rust, I don't. There is no. There really is no RM. There is no RMT. It doesn't really make. I don't know. Maybe it's because the games wipe fast, like a month, 2 months
I was gonna say, is that
on
because the game
official.
wipe is so short? Like, if the game wiped
That
every
that could be a
day, no one would
product.
pay for anything, right? No one would pay for anything
Yeah.
if the every day. If it wiped every month, would people bother? Maybe not. But given it's like 6 months plus, like especially in this wipe, people maybe are more incentivized to do it as well if it's going to be a long one or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know.
Because like
It's just
the
yeah,
only
the combination of stuff in Tarkov.
the what of stuff.
In combination of just like factors that make it so problematic. I think people would like, so long as you can still interact player to player, I think you're always going to have an element of RMT. Yeah, you might make it smaller or something by deleting all of the player trading functionality. Like, yeah, you
Yeah.
might make it smaller, okay, but it's one of those things. Like, the one thing I'm interested in is like how they bypass. Because now, they did say at one stage that if you were doing like high value transactions, even between friends, then people could be banned for RMT if it was too
Yeah, I
much.
remember that.
Know how they deal with that, to be honest, from the cheat community perspective. I don't really know. Like, do they do like 10 raids or something? It sounds kind of awkward and weird. Like, people wouldn't want to do that as a buyer, I don't think. But I don't really know how they get past that limitation.
Yeah. It's
I'd
just
be
weird
interested
because
to know.
I would almost expect to see it in Rust, but usually the meta for Rust hacking is you have like that one guy that's like, all right, boys, I'm gonna get on my alternate account. And all of a sudden, like, you start seeing this new name like you're fighting this group, and then this new guy, part of the group, starts showing up, and he's like, you look up his Steam account, and it's like, yeah, 14 days old, has like 2 vac bans, it's like hidden, like it's like, okay, bro, but you don't really like, I don't know, it's just, yeah, it's just weird. I'm sure
Mm.
there's so many things at play. We'll have to see as time goes on, but I am a believer in VSG. I'm I think we just really can't trust these guys, these shady guys who are exploiting this game for their own financial pockets. Like they're lining their pockets. Like they do not give any 2 cents about, they're like in your analogy, they're like the extreme version of like the cheater who's gone or the streamer who's gone on the like super dark end, they're like, I need my cheats so I can make my money. And I mean, they don't give any F's about anyone involved except for themselves. So yeah, of course the guy's gonna say there's a bunch of cheaters in the game. You should go buy more cheats. Like you should totally buy RMT so you can get revenge on that guy that beat you. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's just really
it's weird.
bad. Really bad.
Yeah, I just hope that things look up. As I said, I think things look like they are starting to look up from what I've seen around, what people
Hmm.
have said. So yeah, hopefully we continue to go from here. And yeah, I
Yeah.
believe in BSG too. I think they're going to do the best job that they can, and
It's a hard
we'll
job,
just see
man.
what happens. Yeah, it's a really hard job. It's a really hard
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. I think until they can figure out some solution to the RMT problem, it's gonna yeah, it's gonna be a forever battle of hitting gophers, playing whack-a-mole.
You need to be able to
So,
target those like initial guys who are starting the process, people who are getting carried. You need to be able to systematically, and this is the thing, you can't be like looking into people's accounts. You need to like systematically be able to identify this stuff, and that's not easy because some stuff which might, you're going to catch a load of people who are false positives, and then they ban them, and then everyone's going to complain because it's then hard to get your account unbanned, and without any proof or footage, it's very hard to know whether they're cheating or not. And it's like you don't want to ban. This is the problem. You don't want to ban anybody falsely, and
yeah.
so you end up probably letting through people who are cheating maybe in a more like sophisticated manner, because that's the thing. It's like, so it's very similar to like the justice system, right? You don't really want like there's like, it's kind of like, here's innocent people and like here's guilty people, and you
Yeah.
like slide the scale somewhere, and it's like, well,
Mhm.
if you slide it so that like no innocent people go to prison, then some guilty people get let free.
Yeah.
And if you slide it so that no guilty people get let free, it means that some innocent people go to prison. And so it's kind of like, where do you want to be on this scale? Like, there's no right answer. And this is the problem
Yeah.
with pretty much anything in life, actually, is that almost everything is so much more graduated than people like to believe, because it's so easy to think about the world in black and white. And the world
Yeah.
is so graduated most of the time. And it's like, where do we decide to put this, right? Do we like blanket ban a load of people and then accidentally we catch streamers sometimes, we catch people who are smaller, have no recourse to come back and say, okay, well, actually, it wasn't me, and but how do I prove it? And it's hard. And so doing this kind of stuff like systematically is not straightforward, and it's hopefully what Battle I can help with, and we just have to trust. We just have to trust.
Yeah.
Otherwise, ultimately, no one's going to be playing this game in 3 years, right? So you got to trust that they're going to do what they need to do. Otherwise, there's
Sure.
no hope. So here's to hope.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well,
Enough about
I
hackers, cheaters.
yeah, I think that's enough, man. That's enough. It's kind of a sad topic, honestly. We
It is a
had
bit.
we had EUL on not too long ago, and just sort of like them talking about being in these like Discord servers and sort of hearing some of these people's stories. It's just like, really sad. Like you could tell they're not well off, mentally or, emotionally. Like, they're not in a good state of mind and probably depressed and whatnot. So it is just all very, very sad, the whole thing, really.
Mhm. Indeed.
But
Indeed.
on a lighter note though, I've been looking into some Discord features and I saw that there's a Clubhouse feature where you can basically have like a talk and you could have a live audience listen in, and then you can even have a functionality where audience members can raise their hand and you
Wow.
can allow them to speak. And um, so it's pretty cool. I have to look into it, but I thought it might be something interesting to look into if we ever want
Yeah,
to
that's
do
really
like,
cool.
yeah, if we ever want to do like a live show and then have maybe like towards the end a segment of the show where we take questions or see people's comments. Like it'd be pretty cool. So
Sounds good.
yeah,
Yeah, we'll
that's
have to look
cool.
into it. Get
Yeah,
more interaction. It's always good.
yeah, I think so. All
That's
right.
all.
Anything else, Giga, before we close?
No, that's I think that's it for me. I can see my stream is suffering, so I'm gonna have to try and fix that in the background. But hopefully my thing's been fine for you the whole time and that all the audio will go out perfectly. I'm hoping. But the Twitch is super scuffed, so I'm gonna have to look into
Oh
what
no,
is up. Yeah. So
that's
otherwise,
unlo
nothing from me. I'm gonna carry on tinkering with my
Yeah,
setup.
cool. Well, with that, guys, we'll wrap it up, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Catch you later. Bye bye bye.